Let's jump. We're going to have a lot to talk about with the cost, so let's jump right into the news.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North South America, all the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press. Come on.
News. First up in game news, there is a new game that is going to be coming. That's going to be launching on Kickstarter very, very soon in the next few weeks. It is by Tim Armstrong, and it's called Arcana Rising. Card drafting, engine builder, 2 to 6 sorcerers, and plays in an hour or less. So when people are talking about it, or at least Candace Harris, Candace Harris, friend of the Game Brain crew, she compared it to Race Arcana and It's a Wonderful World, 2 games I was super excited to play, and neither of which I liked. So maybe this,
great.
Maybe this once again won't be for me. It also, my whole Race Arcana thing is the fantasy theme just does nothing for me.
Same.
And in this one,
really?
in this one, you're gonna have cards that are charms, herbology, blood arts, potions, alchemy, artifacts. You're gonna have a hand of cards. They're gonna be passed to the next player. You're gonna pick one and then pass them on, and you're gonna choose whether or not to place the card into your tableau, or to discard it and use its value to run your engine, cast your spells, and so on and so forth. I'm going to play this. There's no question about it. I'm going to play this, and I will keep playing these games until there's one that I like. Because
you mean in terms of fantasy games or like card magic games?
In this case, it's both, right? In this case, it is a little bit of both. I mean, it also brings up, even though it's not a card game, it brings up that alchemy game that we played, Trismegistus, which also was just like, this theme is just killing me. It's really not helping me at all.
Yeah.
Get into
what
this.
Do you think that is, Tom? What is it about fantasy that you have none in your life?
We're more of like an asbestos kind of crew over here.
I do.
Right.
I am much more intrigued with something like that. It is true.
Real world stuff.
I recognize that I'm weird on theme. I recognize that I am not the usual. That my favorite game of all time is a simulation of the German parliamentary election system. I realize that's not.
I love that.
That I'm a little bit of an outsider. That one of my favorite themes is container, where we're just managing container ships. I guess what it is there's so much fantasy out there that I'm like, what are you doing differently, or is this just? Are you just mailing it in? And
I actually am totally with you there, Tom, in terms of loving real world themes that sort of you can sort of see it in the world around you. Although, I do enjoy fantasy to a certain degree, but I think for me, one of the reasons why I've sort of pulled away fantasy themed games. Of course I'll play a fantasy themed game, I'm sure, and I would love a fantasy themed game if it was a good game. But in one of my groups, they love fantasy themed games, and so I played a lot of stuff with magicians and mages, or not mages, but stuff like that. And it was fun. It's always fun. Really, if you're with your friends, it's all great. But every time I bring a game, I try to suggest a game that's like, hey, this one has to do with like car manufacturing or building rails, or this one is like you're like running a factory or something. There was like, oh god, that looks awful. And I'm like, you know what? I always play these fantasy games, which I have very little interest in this theme, but I always do it because it's like I feel like that's part of like being in a game group. And so I started to resent the fantasy theme because I felt like it was getting like, oh, people would play fantasy theme, but then there was like snobbery against, something about manufacturing. And then that has now created a weird complex in my head where I'm like, fantasy. So
you know what you need to do? Because you're the one teaching these games. I know you are. You just have to teach it as though it's a fantasy theme. This game is called Kanban. Kanban was an ancient wizard. He was the greatest of the wizards. Now you're going to gain a blueprint. I'm sorry, did I say blueprint? A scroll. And the scroll, look, the scroll is for the black magic. I don't know why it looks a little bit like a car, but it's not. It's a
cars are dragons.
It's
They're
a
very
golem.
specific looking dragons.
I guess what's your favorite fantasy game? Would say Terra Mystica be considered a fantasy game to you?
Sure, of course it is.
And if there wasn't what's the other one? What's the space one? Gaia Project. Would Terra Mystica go like, I don't really like Terra Mystica because of dragons or fire giants?
Until Gaia Project came out, I loved Terra Mystica. If the game is good enough, the theme doesn't really matter. But I'll also say that theme was not mailed in. It was not pasted on. It was not chosen willy nilly. There were the witches and the mermaids and the halflings and the dwarves. Their powers that made them unique fit their role. They were all well, maybe not all, but most of them very well thought out, very well considered, and put together to make a lot of sense. Frankly,
so it sounds like you don't like the lazy implementation of fantasy in games as far as theme.
That's for sure, but I think that may have also. I think I may call things lazy that maybe aren't quite as lazy as I make them out to be. I don't find. I mean, some people find Race Arcana and the theme to be great. I don't. To me, it's like it could be anything. It feels very generic and very pasted on. I don't even like the art, and other people, Maddie loves the art. It's like his favorite art from last year. So we just don't see eye to eye on that. No, I'm willing to, and I try whenever we talk about a game like that, I try to say, hey, listen, I come in with baggage. Here's my baggage. So take everything I say about this particular part of the review with a huge grain of salt, because boy, oh boy, I got a Subaru filled with bags.
I'm working through some stuff.
Yeah. I'm just looking through my games right now, and out of my collection, I think I only have one game that is sort of high fantasy-ish. It's the King's Guild, which actually my friend Matt designed. It's a really super fun game. And by the way, if you like Splendor, it's like Splendor. It's like it takes Splendor and then just like goes the next level with it, and that's fantasy and that's fun. I don't have a problem. Like, it doesn't. I would never say, oh, this is a good game, but it's fantasy, so therefore it's not worthy. It's just more like I now have like a reaction to the fantasy theme, which is that it like takes me back to this place where I feel like the games that I like were on the receiving end of snobbery, and then I, for some reason, I'm now taking it out on a theme that probably doesn't deserve this psychological baggage.
So everyone, as you can tell, the Game Brain group has some baggage that need to work through. Everyone, a good game therapist.
Yeah, I literally have a game. I have Healthy Heart Hospital. I have Symphony No. 9. This is where my mind's at. I mean, that's ridiculous.
You guys, I don't know what's going on in this episode, but we have brought up Cheesecake Factory, Katherine Heigl, and fantasy games. I'm just like, I'm being seriously triggered here. Triggered.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the main event, so this is craziness.
It is. Anyway, Arcana Rising. If you like Race Arcana, I don't know why, but it is a game that very much might be to your interests. Will be on Kickstarter coming this month. Look for it. Arcana Rising by Tim Armstrong. Next up, Undaunted. We went from Undaunted Normandy, and now we have Undaunted North Africa. Okay, it's gonna be releasing, or it will have just released right around now. And it is, if you like Undaunted, it is the same game. It's just with different cards, different setting, and I gotta say, I love the art. There's something I'm really into Normandy as a theme. I really like it. I mean, Breakout Normandy is a really old school war game that I own and have played dozens of times and absolutely love. But there is something about the North Africa that really gets me going. I don't know. Maybe I'm more Lawrence of Arabia than Saving Private Ryan. Exactly. Yeah, maybe, but it's gorgeous. Have you guys played Undaunted Normandy?
I have, and I love the game. I love the game. It's a 2-player game, and you have various scenarios that you can play. Mm-hmm. And what I find is that I don't enjoy playing 2-player games very much now, unless it's short. And Undaunted is scenario is pretty short. And it really gets, how should I say, it gets blood pumping without having to feel like someone is going to get pummeled for the next hour.
Gotcha.
You know, so it's exciting and it's fun. Yeah, it's high fun. That's why I describe it.
So you've been playing a bunch of Imperial Struggle, though. So how do you feel about that, given what you just said?
Like, ultimately, like, you know, like, I've not finished the game. Like, no one has gotten to 30 or 0. Like, I take it back. One time I won by getting all 7 markets, right? You know, like all 4 territories and 3 markets.
Yeah.
But like, but ultimately, what happens is, like, if someone is like looking like they're gonna die, like, you know, but it's gonna take an hour, or like in this case, like 4 eras, we just you know, tap out.
Now, since you love Undaunted Normandy, is Undaunted North Africa like way in your wheelhouse, and you're ready to jump
absolutely.
on board?
I'm very excited for Matt to get this. Invite me over, and then 2 hours go by. We played the scenarios.
Yeah, it looks great. The system is very well regarded. You definitely, if you were into 2-player short war games that you can play in about an hour or so, definitely check out Undaunted North Africa and its predecessor, Undaunted Normandy.
I'll say one more thing about it. Like,
please.
What it does very well is theme. Like, if we're talking about theme, like, it feels like you're like in this skirmish environment in World War II. Like, you know, here are these. You have the machine gunnist. You have the whatever. You have, and it just feels so like you're in that moment.
I love that there's a card for Kristen Scott Thomas in a cave. I think that really just fills it out for me.
the whole experience. Yeah.
Next up, we have a game called Cairn. Cairn, Cairn.
Cairn.
I don't believe it. I think it's pronounced closer to Karn, but I don't know. I don't know why. But I
was hoping it was a game about like ladies who ask for the manager. Karen.
It's a game called Karen. See if you can be the biggest Karen.
That's right.
Which I'm starting to have a problem with that word, by the way. But that's a topic for another day. I think the number of Karen incidents are unfairly slandering a gender. That said, let's get into Cairn. Cairn is a 2019 release that is getting wider distribution every day. Christian Martinez is the designer. It is a 2-player only game, and it gets a lot of comparisons to chess, and it gets some comparisons to Tigris and Euphrates, the amazing Reiner Knizia game. Shut Up and Sit Down did a review of it in which they gushed over how much fun it is. Here's the thing. It is a 2-player, face-to-face, head-to-head, abstract strategy game. But unlike a lot of these sorts of things, it is designed to be offensive, not defensive. What I mean by that is when you're playing chess is a hugely defensive game. Yes, there are offensive strategies and all that sort of stuff, but a lot of what the game is about locking things up, bogging things down, and limiting options, right? In Cairn, there is no such beast. The object of the game is to get your sorcerers across the board using checker-like tactics to some degree to get them into the village of the enemy, of the other guy. That's how you eventually win the game. But the abilities to defend your own are relatively limited. Right? There's no moving backwards. There's none of that sort of stuff. It's all pressing forward. The other thing is that there are 3 action tokens on the board, and those action tokens are double-sided. When you choose an action token, you do that action, and then you flip it over to the other side, and then your opponent can use any of the 3 that they see now in front of them. It's getting some really good reviews. People I respect a lot are saying, you know what, if you want a game that plays in about 20 minutes and feels kind of brain-burnery, you should try this out. So, you know, given that we love things like Ricochet Robots, I thought, you know, maybe Cairn would be something that we should talk about on the podcast, because it might be worth a look, might be worth a try.
Yeah,
sure.
Sounds great.
When you said like there's all offense and no defense, it sounds like slap boxing.
Yeah, I don't believe it is. What I mean by that is that there's no turtling. There's
okay,
no
gotcha.
right. It's not one of these things where you guys set up this great impenetrable wall, and then just wait for the other person to make a mistake. Those are the kinds of games like that I don't care for, really. Other news: Sagrada is on Switch now. Ben, you were the one who told me about this. I think this is fantastic news.
Yeah, apparently it was just released on the Switch a few days ago from when we're recording, so I get late July, I think it was. I think this is great. I think anytime we can get games to maybe, modern board games to people who may not have access to them or may not know about them via a super popular platform like the Nintendo Switch, I think that's excellent. I think actually Sagrada is really made for Nintendo Switch. I don't know if there's like an iOS implementation of it. There might be. It'd be good for that too. And Sagrada is like a really, really super fun game. I mean, again, another 20 to 30 minute easy casual game. My friends are obsessed with it. One of the reasons why I actually don't play it much anymore is because my friends burned me out on it. It was like every single time, can we play Sagrada? Can we play Sagrada? So, it is a super, super fun game, and love that it's on the Switch. I think it's about $15. Mm-hmm. A little high for my taste. I think I would have liked it at about $10.
Sure.
But I think, especially if you're looking for content in between your Animal Crossing sessions, hey, Sagrada, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, Sagrada, Azul, games like that are these abstract pattern recognition, limited choice, maximum benefit, sort of, what would you call those? Efficiency puzzles to some degree.
Yeah.
I think are amazing. I really like. I have Sagrada and 2 expansions for it. Play with my son.
Oh, how are those expansions, by the way?
They're really. Some of them are really good. But it becomes one of those things where you have to decide. The base game already is so thinky. Do we really want to add in more elements? Now, certainly, adding in new cards that are, new tools cards, or adding in new windows that are more challenging in terms of the limitations. The way it works in Sagrada is you get a window that you have to put colored dice into to make a pleasing pattern. And each window has certain restrictions. They say, okay, this has to be this particular number, or this has to be this particular color, or all of the, and there are general rules where colors cannot be next to each other in certain ways and all that sort of stuff. The idea being that you can go for a tougher window, but it's going to score more points. In other words, you can set your own difficulty level. With the expansions, some of them have some very difficult windows that are very, very interesting to play.
I would love that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a great game that I just got burned out on. But all those games, I think I think Azul should be on the Switch. I actually have a copy of Mandala, which I haven't even gotten to play yet, just sort of sitting here. I'm like debating whether or not I'm going to force my boyfriend to play with me because he's not much of a gamer. So I may force him to, just because everyone says that's also another great, 2-player, 20, 25-minute, abstract fun fest.
Oh, you've got to let me know. I haven't played that one yet, so I would love to hear what it is.
All right. Well, now I have a great excuse to force him to play with me.
And for the podcast. We got to do it for the podcast.
For the podcast.
Research.
Exactly. Right. It's for a good cause. And last but not least, this is a week of the sads. This is supposed to be Gen Con. Trey and I should be, stinking up a hotel room, and, we should have like 4 different duffel bags filled with costumes as we go from LARP to LARP. I mean, that's what this is supposed to be. That's what this week is supposed to be. But unfortunately, they have Gen Con Online. I guess it's not unfortunate they have Gen Con Online. I'm glad they have Gen Con Online. I'm glad they have an event that people can go and participate in. Did I participate in that? No. I just told you what my week was like. It was absolute nightmare. So, but I can say that the Ennies, which are the Oscars for the role-playing game business, just occurred last night. Last night was the sort of online Ennie Award nominations were announced about a month ago, and the awards were announced yesterday. And I will tell you that the best game of the year, 2020 game of the year, if you are into role-playing games, is Alien, the RPG. Alien is kind of amazing. Let's put it this way. RPGs, just like board games and everything else, had a problem historically with branded content, right? If it was, so and so the board game, you knew that board game was likely to be bad, right?
Yeah.
And then things started to take a turn. I think Battlestar Galactica really was the first one to start to make that turn, where somebody said, "Oh no, we're going to take this branded content and we're going to use what makes that brand great in the first place into something that's amazing as a game." Right? And then if you look at what Prospero Hall is doing right now, I mean, they are just knocking it out of the park by taking branded content after branded content and making some pretty amazing, pretty hilarious, pretty fun games that capture the spirit of what they were doing in the first place. Alien, the RPG, does that in spades. It is a game that I have had 10 different people tell me, you would be amazed how scary a role-playing game can feel. It is scary.
Wow.
It is really, really interesting. It sets the mood perfectly. It builds out the world properly, and it evokes the feelings of that first movie so well that it's kind of astonishing. Which is interesting because
Wow.
we mentioned a game called Mothership, which is an indie darling, which very much is.
I remember that.
It's very much in the Alien world. So you got two different choices for that. But Alien RPG, listen, the Annies sometimes give awards to the mass market games, but also they like to respect the indie games as well. So Alien winning, it means that this is a cut above. This truly is. And then the product of the year, the other Annie award, the big Annie award, went to a game that was also nominated for, I think it was the runner-up for Game of the Year, a game called Morkborg. That's MORKBORG. It is an art punk RPG set in a destroyed world. How do I describe this? If you were living in a world that the entire world had decided at the same time, you know what? I think everything should be Icelandic death metal. That's what Morkborg is. It is crazy looking. You can go to morkborg.com and take a look at this. The art is stunning. I have no idea how the gameplay is. I can't quite wrap my head around what it is. They say it's OSR. OSR means old school Renaissance. Old school Renaissance for me is a loaded term. It's basically what it means is we don't want any of that newfangled storytelling stuff. We want to play Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's that kind of thing, and it can have a regressive sort of feel to it sometimes, a little reactionary sometimes. Not necessarily though, and certainly I don't see anything in here that gets me worried about it. But boy, it certainly looks really interesting. They have an adventure called the Death Ziggurat. They have an expansion called Eat, Pray, Kill, PREY.
Okay.
So it's just one of these funky things that you just want to put on some Icelandic death metal and have a game with your dear friends. And anyway, if this is your sort of thing, morkborg.com, check it out.
Wow.
When you said Morkborg, I was thinking like, is it Mork and Mindy meets Star Trek? Would be
Or a
cool.
buffet.
Oh man, I would back that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, me too. That's right. I would too. Like Mork and Mindy meets Star
That's kind of
Trek.
amazing.
The Borg found planet Orc, and it was all over. Holy cow!
I mean, hey, I think that's a great pitch to one of these companies. I say it's time to invest in that. I mean, Tom, this is right up your alley. I mean, you design LARPs. You're a writer. You're a Hollywood. You're a big time Hollywood writer. This is like the perfect union of everything.
That's good. And it's branded content, and so there's a renaissance in getting good branded content. This is good.
All right,
Can you incorporate Katherine Heigl into it somehow?
Oh, you're killing me. You guys
At
are
Cheesecake Factory.
absolutely
At the Cheesecake
killing me.
Factory. This is where it all happens. A portal opens up in the Cheesecake Factory where Katherine Heigl is enjoying a cheat meal.
The water is warm in my personal nightmare. Dive in. All right, enough of this nonsense.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.